Hey everyone, it's your favorite host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today, you all are in for a treat. I have a very fabulous guest. We are going to be talking about relationships. And I love this topic. You know, we talk about relationships often. We go from anywhere, from BBLs, anything. But this is a really powerful connection because this lady helps us get together instead of separate us. And that's something you don't hear too much about. Everybody's focusing on the negativity. But this lady is a true professional, and she's here to help us spread the love. You won't want to miss 1 second of this powerhouse speaker. Here we go. Hey everyone, it's your boy Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have the honor and privilege. I'm thrilled to introduce a guest who has revolutionized the world of bespoke matchmaking. Joining me today is Miss Gina Hendrix, one of the most sought after and acclaimed matchmakers on the planet. Since launching her premier matchmaking service in 2008, Ms. Gina has been transforming the love lives of billionaires and high-profile bachelors all across the globe with her unparalleled personalized service. And we're going to dive into the sauce and how she does it. See if she'll give us some tidbits today. Based in Los Angeles, Ms. Gina works globally and exclusively with the world's most affluent and discerning men, helping them find their perfect partners with a 98% success rate. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. That's unheard of. So, without further ado, help me welcome this incredible, my lovely guest, Miss Gina Hendrix.
I love that. Thank you. Welcome. Wow, what a buildup. I hope I live up to it.
You have, ma'am. This is all you. You've done the hard work. You're doing what I think is necessary, absolutely necessary. And again, what I said was absolutely true. There's a huge divide, and it seems like couples are breaking apart, but you do something different, and you're breaking through and breaking the mold and actually bringing people together. And this all started in 2008, but I feel like there's a story here. What triggered this in 2008? Can you spill any tea there?
Sure. I mean, I've always been a natural connector. I love connecting people with things, everything. I mean, people with pets. I'm always trying to get dogs adopted, or people with jobs, people with fun things to do. I've just always been a connector. And so I've had 3 careers. I was a flight attendant for Delta Airlines for 9 years. Then I became a celebrity wardrobe stylist for 10. And I don't know if you know about the world of production, but production is a lot of up and down, and so there's lags when you don't have a job and you've got time on your hands before you get the next production gig. And so during those kind of lags, I discovered in the early 2000s, I discovered online dating. And I was like, wow, this is so cool that people can actually meet people and maybe their paths would never connect otherwise. So that set me on this whole mindset of me wanting to start my own online dating site. And I tried to pursue that for off and on for 7 years. And finally a mentor, a man that I had known through this process. He was a lovely man. He said, Gina, I went to a networking event and I met some matchmakers. They do traditional matchmaking. You should think about that, because starting this whole tech online dating thing seems to be a challenge for you. And I was like, okay. And so he gave me a book. I read it and it resonated with me. And I went all in.
That's powerful. And this is important. This is significant, because just like what that friend said, there's a huge problem with dating online. Can you share what is the specific problem that we're facing with? Because there's a negative stigma with dating online. What's going on there?
Such a great question. It's interesting because I was reading an article the other day and they were saying how, dating is harder than ever these days. But yet, you know what? I was telling my assistant, I don't think dating is harder these days. I think what the online dating sites and dating apps, and I am still a proponent of that, because I think, when we'll talk more specifically about matchmaking, which I love and it's my business, but it is hard. It's like trying to solve two Rubik's Cube puzzles at the same time. So I do believe in the dating apps. I do believe on online dating, but the problem is it's not that dating in general has become harder. It's that people have become pickier because of online dating, because of the dating apps. I think people, their mindset is like people are so disposable. And when they're, cruising through the apps, they literally think all those options are really their options. And they're not literally their options. As you know, those women may not like those men may not like those women. But I think mentally it's made people feel like people are just disposable. Like there might be something better behind door number 2 or better behind door number 3. And I think that is the current issue with the dating apps. So many options people feel like they have.
So it sounds like these men and women are being overwhelmed. It's too many options. It's too many choices, too many decisions to make, and maybe not even realizing that what you're seeing on this person's profile may be not a hard, fast, definitive. This is a must for them. Maybe there's some flexibility which we're missing.
Right.
We're not talking and truly getting to know.
Very true. I think because people are doing it on their own, they think they need to get to the bottom of who somebody is in, and kind of they do in some ways in a very quick swipe left or swipe right. You've got to make a decision. Is this person good or bad? Is this person cute or not? Is it, and it's these snap decisions that people have to make so that they just get into this mindset of just almost like an endless swiping instead of, because the other side of the coin is also impossible, right? To your point, like how could they possibly sift through every one of these options? So it's just I like to say it's the wild, wild west of dating these days, or the dating super highway, It's
It
hard.
is. It is. It's a lot. I learned in sales is like people just need 3 options. And maybe that's a specific niche that you can do with matchmaking. Like, listen, I got this girl, this wonderful lady. These are the characteristics that you said are important, but I think a unique piece is maybe not saying, "Hey, tell me what you like. Tell me what you're not good at," so you can match those pieces together. Maybe
I like that. I may steal that. Thank you.
that's huge, and
I think
because
it's, yeah.
I saw it on a TV show. It was after I was watching the Love Is Blind series. I think it's like wed at first sight or married at first sight.
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it. Married at First Sight. Yes.
It's scary because
That's
and the matchmaker comes on. He says, I'm not matching people for what they're actually asking for. I'm matching people for the loopholes. So if I'm a person that's very analytical, you need someone that's the opposite of you to help balance you. Can you speak to some of the skill sets that you do when you match people together?
So what's funny? Just this morning, because there's a younger client. He was 33, and I set him up with this one girl. He became a client. I immediately set him up with this girl within like 2 weeks of him becoming a client. She's the only woman I ever set him up with, and so I hadn't heard from either of them, and it's been a number of months. It's been like April, whenever Coachella was, like, so maybe April. And so I just checked in with him today, and he said, Gina, he said, we've moved in together. I think we'll get engaged by the end of the year. I'm like, oh my God. And so I think in his case, what made the magic happen is you have two people that were both open-minded, because I deal with a lot of people and I try not to work with people who are too close-minded, because when somebody's too close-minded, too judgmental, and they can't let go of the handrails, as I say, it kind of just, it doesn't free up the energy for me to find them somebody and there are men that come along and they try to micromanage the process. And when you micromanage the process, it just doesn't work. But this Love Is Blind thing, which I've never seen, I will say what I know about men, and Marcus, you can comment on this. Men, they have to be physically attracted to the woman out of the gate. Almost every man I've ever met, they never just say, oh, I'll take, I don't care what she looks like. I just want the inner qualities. I have yet to meet a man that says that. And I find women to be just as particular as well.
And you're right. The inner quality is what captures a man's gaze to draw me in to find the inner person. But
Yes.
initially, I need something to look at.
Absolutely, you do. So that's why, I mean, I know the Love is Blind, it's a good show, but what's the reality of that? What's the long term? I don't know. I don't know. I just know that for me, when I'm matching people, I have to start with, and more so for the guys, but actually, I make sure the women too. Are these two people going to be initially attracted to each other? Because there has to be that initially, so that they can then even tune in to the internal qualities. You know what I mean? Because it, like what you just said, if they're not visually attracted to this person at all out of the gate, then they're not even going to be receptive to learning more about the internal qualities of somebody, you know?
That's so true. Can you share what was his struggle? Because obviously he came to you because he was struggling himself. Can you share what that man was struggling when he first came to you and said, "Hey, can you find me someone?"
Well,
Um,
it's interesting. So he'd been married once before, and he's young, but he'd been married once before. He was extremely interesting person, but also quirky. He was quirky. He was not the tallest guy in the world, not the cutest guy in the world. And I'll admit, I do like to stack the deck in my favor. You know what I'm saying? And, but I don't know. I just liked his vibe and his energy. And I think that his challenge, because he was actually with another matchmaking service as well, because he loves being in a relationship, he loves being part of a couple. His challenge was basically that he didn't, like a lot of wealthy guys, they don't want to meet women who just want money. So that's number one. When you're a wealthy guy out in the world, you tend to attract certain type of ladies. You know, even sports stars, I've heard them comment and saying that their occupation a lot of times attracts the wrong element. And so
I'll say gold diggers.
there you
Gold
go.
diggers.
There you go. The wrong element, gold diggers. Yes. And it can, you know, and these women are getting smarter by the minute. They know how to make it seem like maybe they're not in it for the money, but I am pretty good at seeing through these ladies. And a lot of times they end up coming clean with me. So I think he wanted to connect intellectually. He needed to find somebody kind of quirky like him. And who's wasn't just in it for the money. You know what I mean? So, listen, even if you want to ask me, Gina, how in the world did you knock it out of the park? I don't even know how I knocked it out of the park. I mean, because a lot of times I'll think people could be a perfect match, and then they meet and the chemistry is not there. That chemistry thing is like really the intangible quality that you just don't know if it's going to be there until you get two people face to face, you know?
Gina Hendrix, yo. You can't, and you can't. It's a sauce.
I love that song. I love it.
It's a chemical. It's a sauce, and it truly speaks to your expertise, right? And I guarantee you, Love Is Blind does not have a 98% success rate.
No,
And so
I'm sure
let's
I'm
no
sure
one
no.
no one is doing that. Do in your experience, because you deal with affluent men, so I have two questions from that. First
Mhm.
off, what is the definition of an affluent man in your expertise make to see
Did
what
somebody
a
ask that question, or did you make that question up?
I asked that question.
Okay, okay.
I'm shooting my shot in here. I'm throwing my
Okay,
name in
got
the
it,
hat.
got it. I mean, you know, I think that this is tricky and complicated because, you know, there will be those people, and I think sometimes on social media they go, "Oh, all you care about is money." For me, you know, and if you knew me, like I'm like so down to earth, like I don't care about money. But what I did realize early on in my business is that men, even if they didn't have champagne budget, they had beer budget, but they had champagne taste. Meaning, I just learned early on, like every guy wants like the most amazing, gorgeous, fit, impressive woman he could possibly get. But a lot of times those guys were not at that level to get that kind of lady. And like I said, I wish, like what you were saying, I wish they were like, "Oh, sure. I fully trust you, Gina. Just give me a lady with a heart of gold." But it doesn't work that way. So from a business perspective, I just learned that, you know, it was a better business to work with men who have champagne budget and champagne taste. Boom.
Makes
But
sense.
saying that, you know, I have men that do well, and I have men that do, like, you know, like private planes and homes all around the world. So I charge a substantial fee. So I think when I say affluent, he's got to be a man where he's not scraping together his nickels to work with me. I wouldn't work with a guy like that. I don't want anybody to stretch their dollars. and I don't want anybody who's worrying about money. And so, it has to be a guy that can afford my fee comfortably and feel good about that. And he also has a lifestyle that women like. Not, and I don't mean like private plane, because I do have those guys, but not all my guys are like that. I have another guy that's in Florida, and he's a retired doctor. He retired early. He's 47. Before you think
Wow.
he's really old, he's not. But he's also very minimalist. He doesn't have like a flashy lifestyle. He invests his money and he lives on what he has. But he has a lovely lifestyle. It's just he's not like the jet setter guy. So it's at different ends of the spectrum.
For sure. For sure. Thank you for breaking that down so
Sure,
delicately.
sure.
I've actually heard the latter from men, that it's actually not a bad thing for women to use that as a criteria, right? He should have, especially if that young lady is looking for a provider, right? And so what are your thoughts on a woman that says, I want a man that makes a certain amount of money? Is that negative, or is that wrong per se? I've
I
been
mean,
told
listen,
otherwise.
everybody should dream big, you know what I mean? But I think that when women fill out profiles for me, for my database, I think that, when a woman fills out the profile and she basically doesn't care what he looks like at all, how old he is at all, and all these criteria, and it's like any, I'll take any old guy. How much money has he got? That's not good. All right. But I think certainly a lot of the women I deal with, they're extremely educated. They've worked very hard to get where they're at in life. And I don't think there's anything certainly wrong with wanting somebody who is on that path that you're on, I mean, and listen, I don't mind those women who have nothing going on. And like I said, they're dreaming big. They want a super wealthy men, but there are certain things that come with those different kinds of guys. I mean, I think there are those wealthy men who want more of their equal. They don't ever want a woman who's like all buster or like conquering the world, because they do want to be able to spend time with her. And, but a lot of men who are highly educated want a woman who's highly educated. A man who's into personal growth wants a woman that meets him at that level as well. But then there are those men who just want who just want to use their money and have just a flashy lady on their arm. And so you just kind of have to be careful what you wish for, in a way. I've heard a lot of those, the term is trad wife now, where the women just want, to be at home cooking and having the babies. And then there's those women now posting videos as a cautionary tale, be careful what you wish for in that area as well. So I think the more educated and accomplished and leveled up the woman is, I think that's more of an appropriate partner, certainly for the men that I work with, because they go to charity events. They want a woman who can not just be the arm candy, but be a true partner.
For sure.
So
Definitely. Do you find that, is there any coaching on your end on either side? Or is there any coaching you do for the men, like, hey buddy, you might want to express this a little bit more because she's very artsy? Or do you do any coaching on the women's side, like, hey girl, he's really into, quirky quirks, and so
right.
you'll kind of prep her in that way? Or is there any coaching or mentoring on your side?
Yes. So with my guys, I have to kind of sneak it in because, a lot of my guys, they think they know, they have all the answers, they got it going on. So I kind of have to sneak the feedback and the coaching in as I work with them, because as I set them up on dates, I get feedback from the ladies. And, when people are out there dating, especially in the dating apps, they're not getting real world feedback. They don't know. And a lot of times, especially with wealthy men, they surround themselves with people who just say yes all the time. And so
Mhm.
nobody's willing to like shine the light on what they might be doing wrong or how they could improve themselves. So I sneak it in here and there after dates when I've got, if there's feedback to share, I will certainly do that. I mean, I had a client and I'd known him for a long time. He'd been a client, and then went off the radar, came back on the radar. And he seemed to have changed in the last, I don't know, year that I'd seen him. And so consistently on the dates he was going on, the women were like, Gina, he was just talking so much. He wouldn't let me finish my sentence. He was like steamrolling over me. He blah, blah, blah. And the feedback was consistent. So I wait until there's a little bit of a pattern. And then I come to him with, hey, a few of these ladies have reported the same thing over and over. So I think this is something you need to start being aware of. And yes, the ladies, absolutely. I usually will kind of cue them up before they ever go out on the date with my guys. I mean, so it's only men who hire me for matchmaking, but because of all this help I've been giving women behind the scenes all these years to be able to date my guys, I now have a whole separate side of the business, women all over the world who do coaching with me. And I level them up and get them prepped and teach them everything I know so that they can access and attract these type of men they want. So yeah, coaching does factor in. And some ways it's more, subtle, and some ways it's more obvious. It just depends.
Yeah. I told y'all. A powerhouse. This is incredible. I love this. And this is why I get to cheat, because I get to take notes. I get to take notes on my own show. Miss Hendrix, and thank you for this. You're dealing with affluent men and incredible women.
Mm-hmm.
These are probably entrepreneurs, business owners. I'm sure you have those, celebrities as well. And so oftentimes, in order to run a business, you have to have certain qualities of leadership. How does leadership play into relationships? Can you give any advice or tips on that? Should a man who's a very predominant leader and very you stated earlier, like there was a gentleman who's very micromanaging in his business, and so that can carry over to a relationship. How does leadership play into the dating aspect?
It's interesting, because I think that you have some men who they're such leaders that they have so many assistants do everything for them. So then sometimes they might be actually a little disconnected from interacting socially. I think there are those guys certainly at such a high level that they've become a little disconnected. And then I think that there are those men who I have a client, he had 57 companies he runs. So he knows how to really ask the right questions. But sometimes there's the other side of it that I've sort of noticed that some of these guys, they manage me. And I applaud them for it. It's brilliant how they manage me, because I know I'm being managed, but it's like just the way they put things, and it doesn't offend me. And I've learned a lot from business just from these guys, because I mean, having great management skills and knowing how to deal with people and get people to do what you want without like being demanding, or because the thing is, men don't realize, but when they hire a matchmaker, we have to like you in order to do a good job for you. So these guys that, work with matchmakers and then they become assholes, or they're pushy or demanding or just not fun and enjoyable. How in the world can a matchmaker then authentically vouch for them to a woman? And you know what I mean? And so there are those men, if they're particularly smart, and I've worked with some who are like big time celebrity agents and they've run businesses, and those guys are just like phenomenal managers. I even had a young guy, get this, he was 25, my youngest client ever, managed me like nobody's business. He was like this old man in a young studly guy's body, but boy, he just knew what he was doing. And I knew I was being managed, but I was like, okay, what should I do? What should I do? You know what I mean? So the management skills are necessary and helpful if you're doing it right. Like if you know how to manage people in a way, even if it's a date, and you know how to treat people in a way so you get the best out of them. How about that?
I love that. Have you ever fired a client? Not to bring up any negative. Have you ever fired a client?
Oh yeah. A few. Fortunately, not too many. But yes, I have fired a few. There was one guy who hired me, and he'd worked with a number of other matchmakers. He came through a referral, but he was just so, as soon as I got his money and as soon as the contract was signed, he was just up around my neck like this. And he was just like, Gina. And he was just calling me constantly. Who do you have? And he just like, oh, I couldn't do it. And because I don't work well under pressure, I need to be able to do what I do. And they have to trust the process. And so I just told him it's not going to work out. And so I actually went to the bank, and the bank had never returned a wire. They didn't even know how to send a wire back to somebody, because most of my guys just wire me the money into my bank account. So I said, you got to figure out how to wire this money back to this guy, because I can't do this. I cannot do this.
Wow. That's real. And but that also speaks to professionals, right? True professionals. If you're a true professional, you would actually fire some clients because this is not a good fit. As a
No,
professional matchmaker, like you said, they have to match with you as well.
right.
Right? They
No,
have to.
they have to be a match for me. Absolutely. And I think a lot of men with money don't realize in the initial kind of interview phase where we're talking, I think they think they're interviewing me, but I'm actually interviewing them because they're not used to anybody turning them down. If their money's green, most anybody would take it. In fact, I had a woman who I was talking to the other day from another very international matchmaking service. Most people know of these people. And she was saying that it's so scandalous over there. They would never turn anybody down, even if they knew that they couldn't help them. And they would talk people into going out with them, like just almost like fake dates. It was terrible, terrible. Terrible because I think people get caught up in the greed of the money. But I think if you want to have a long-term business, you really, at least in my belief, I mean, I'd be a lot wealthier if I wasn't like this, but I think, I never would sacrifice my integrity for money. I can't do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably speaks to why I have the business I have and I've been at it so long,
What is an ideal first date? What is the date that you typically set up? Do you recommend the first date be via Zoom or FaceTime, or do you always set up in-person first dates? What's the ideal first date with your
Great,
matchmaking
great
service?
question. I set up all the details of the first date. So some of my guys, like they have no problem dating long distance. So if that's the case, then they will fly in to meet the woman. Sometimes if there is distance involved, I do give the client an option if they want to do a Zoom first, just because they're going to a lot of time and trouble to make, even if they have their own plane, it's very expensive to take your own plane places, very. And so all of that is, I factor in and I give them the option. I mean, my preference is that people don't talk on the phone or they don't email or there is no communication, because I think until you get two people face to face, they don't really become real people. And you've got to feel that energy. You've got to feel the vibe. You got to smell them. Do they smell familiar? Does it smell offend? There's so many variables. And so I really try not to, but if there is distance and a client is flying in, then I'll give him the option. But most of my clients say, no, I'm good, Gina. Just, tell me where I'm going and I'll be there, And so I'll get with the woman. I say, do you have a food preference? Do you have a restaurant you prefer? And so I coordinate all the details and I usually always have them meet for dinner.
And this is something unique to me that I'm being selfish about. I tried a matchmaking service. I also did the digital stuff. I did the dating apps, was it Match.com, the Plenty of Fish. And then I found a matchmaking service and they matched me up with several candidates. And the strangest thing, I could not see the young lady beforehand. So
now,
the
was this
first time,
recent or is it, because are you married? I thought I saw a woman's picture.
I am single.
Okay. So I thought when your pictures were going by in the intro, there was like a woman in a wedding dress.
No, that's not me.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was like, that's a beautiful woman. Anyway. Okay. So when did you try this matchmaking service?
It was over like 3 years ago.
Okay. So probably they're not a matchmaking service. Was it Talkify maybe?
No, it was
Who was it? I don't like most because you know what? They play games with people. You know why they don't show pictures, right? You know why?
I do not know why.
Because
That's why I'm
like, hell no, I'm not meeting her. Probably. Were the women
okay.
attractive enough?
The women were attractive when I would meet them, but they weren't. I had to have a profile, just like similar to what you do.
Yeah.
The gentlemen have to have a profile.
Yeah.
And the gentleman will have a profile, and then the lady would get all my details, and I would get kind of a rundown bio of her. She lives here. This is what she's doing. This is her profession. But I would never see the woman until the first date. And so
were you the actual client or were the women the client?
I was the client.
That's very odd.
So it was, and needless to say, I never matched with any of those women on the first date. So I was just curious as to how you set up that first date. Is it a Zoom? Is it a phone call? But you said, hey, let's meet in person.
Well, I show pictures, obviously. I mean, there's times where I do fantasize about like how much easier my life would be if I didn't show pictures. But I'm different. I'm very different because I know what my guys want physically. So I'm never going to go, oh, he wouldn't be attracted to her, but he'll fall in love with her heart. Like, I would never do that. I already know what the guys are physically attracted to. So I wish I could. I wish I could have a business where, I would say, just trust me. You'll like, because a lot of times I do know for a fact, in my world at least, my guys probably would like the woman if they just went and met her, but they get hypercritical about the photos and how she looks, and her eyes are not symmetrical enough, and all this jazz. Some, not all. There's some that are just, well, I'm nuts. I try to avoid those, but sometimes you don't know till you get there. Anyway, so yeah, I show pictures. I'm super transparent. I also show pictures to the lady. I don't share last names. So I don't let the ladies Google my guys. And of course, I don't let my guys Google the ladies. I try to protect everybody's privacy, but I am very transparent about pictures. I don't ever mislead anybody. In fact, I mean, I've told my guys, listen, if you go and you meet this woman and she's like not at all like what I described or showed you, then I won't even count that introduction against you. I think all matchmaking services should do that. They don't. And if there's not chemistry, of course, I will still count it, because that's the one thing you don't know. But if somebody's just not as they've been pitched to the client, I don't think you should count that introduction against them. But yeah, so show the pictures. Both people are like, yes, I want to meet this person. And then I find out when both people are available. I make the reservations, I coordinate the date, and they meet. They don't even have the phone number usually. What happens is, after the date, both people come back to me. She gives me her feedback. He gives me his feedback. And then if it's both a yes, then I say, hey, she had a great time. She wants to see you again. Here's her number. He had a great time. He wants to see you again. Here's his number. And then I make sure that my guys are going to follow up sooner rather than later. So I'll even say, you should be hearing from him today. You know what I mean? And then they're off and running.
Love it. Professional. This is an incredible interview. You can get Miss Gina on her social media platforms, but right now, today, here, you are getting her on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We are everywhere you get your podcast. We are on Facebook business page, YouTube, iHeartRadio, radio.com, Ghana Radio, anywhere, even Audible, anywhere you get this podcast today. Miss Gina is here spilling the tea on Gentleman Style Podcast Show for us and helping us do better. We'll be right back. We got to pay some bills. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Baby Gear Services DMV specializes in high-quality baby gear rentals in the Maryland and DC metro area. We have a wide range of baby gear items for rent, including wooden cribs, car seats, high chairs, and more. We also offer seasonal specials and free delivery. Our prices are very versatile to cover every budget. Wooden cribs start at $17 a day. High chairs and even car seats start at $5 a day. Check out our website, www.bgsdmv.com.
We are here on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage, and we have the incredible, the beautiful, the amazing Miss Gina Hendrix on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, helping us and sharing with us her matchmaking services and her professional expertise with a 98%. I can't get over this. A 98% success rate. And she is spilling the tea here today on Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Miss Gina, I want to pivot here, because you are a philanthropist, you're an author, you're a radio host, you're a matchmaker. You do so many things, panelists, and I want to touch on your books. 2 books that caught my eye: Stop Being a and Get a Boyfriend, and The Great Manhunt, and Access and Attract That Guy Every Woman Wants. Can you speak to what my audience can expect from those books, and what inspired you to write them?
Well, they are books for women. although I've known men who have said, I read the book. I'm like, okay, good. So my first book, Stop Being a and Get a Boyfriend, that book was basically based on a lot of the mistakes that I know I've done wrong, and also things I just saw women doing wrong when they were dating my clients. And so I don't know, it was a catchy, fun title, and it always makes people kind of laugh and get people talking. So so that book, I just delve into the different personality types that great women display as soon as a guy comes along. Because a lot of times women are fabulous doing their own thing, living their life. Then a guy enters the picture and they do all these things, from everything from being like the all businesswoman who's super uptight, to being too picky, to being the mama, to try to give him like micromanage his life and fix him up, to, to irrational, having these irrational fears and thoughts on things. So, and I cover the myriad of personality types and kind of try to point them out in a way where like you were talking to a friend type thing. Because, a lot of times people don't want to hear what they're doing wrong. So there's that one. And then The Great Manhunt is my most recent. And that basically takes women through my step-by-step process of how to access and attract these guys using the dating apps. Because I do believe in the dating apps. But again, I think people, there's just a lot of people amateur hour on the dating apps, like low level photos, horrible haphazard, and just don't know how to communicate and talk to people. And there's just so many things you wouldn't think you would need to know about the dating apps, but you do. So there's that book.
So do you still have that aspect in your business, the dating app, or have you gone fully to matchmaking?
So to come full circle, a few years ago, I had my own dating app, but it was really just, we never really got out of the beta test phase. And you know what? I think it was a little early. And also I think I underestimated women, which I'm shocked that I would never do, but I did. So it was called Jones, and Jones. And it was basically, I tried to take concepts from my matchmaking business. So it was based around, you wanted to do something in the next hour to 2 hours. You just needed someone to do it with. And it could be for friendship. Women would see other women type thing, or romance. So it had both. But essentially, the idea was that, and it was limited messaging, and you'd meet, because again, until you get two people together, you never know if there's going to be chemistry. And I think a lot of things happen from the time people swipe to try to talk and all this stuff, and all this space is where it all falls apart. But if you can kind of see a full profile and you're like, hey, I wanted to go paddleboarding anyway, and he's kind of cute. I don't know that I would necessarily go to dinner with him but I'll give him a shot for paddleboarding, because you see what I mean? That was the idea. But anyway, it wouldn't have lasted during COVID, because it was all about, it was right before COVID. So, but my wheels are always turning. I am like a mad scientist when it comes to trying to think of better ways to connect people.
and that's necessary. And you said this, you need clients to be open-minded.
Yes.
You need clients to be open-minded. So, because you're open-minded, and you need those clients that have an open-minded to say, well, I've never tried paddleboarding, but I'm willing to for this matchmaking, because I am invested. I'm 100% in. And I think that's one of the things you need. You need someone that's, listen, if you're going to pay me this money, I need you to be on board. Don't look at me like a calendar invite. If I call you, I need you to answer. Right. That's the vibe I'm getting. Am I correct there?
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, I have this one client, and he owns several sports teams, and he says he's looking for an authentic relationship, but trying to wrangle him for dates is next to impossible. He's just always busy. And I'll say, like, you can't. He'll even say, hey, Gina, I'd love to go and meet blah, 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 this one particular one. I said, okay, I reach out to her, try to coordinate the date. Don't hear from him again. And women say, oh, he's dating somebody else. I said, no, I trust me. I know he's not really dating somebody else, but I think he just gets so sucked up into his business life. And this is why he's single. He has a young son. He's divorced. And I think between that and all his like sports teams and all this stuff, it's interesting. He just has gotten into this work phase that he can't get out of. So So I think if anybody's going to work with me, they've got to have an open mind and being willing to make the time and effort that it's going to require to date somebody. I mean, I think a lot of people go through the world thinking and acting like they're looking for somebody. But if you can't and don't want to reprioritize your life for somebody, you shouldn't be dating. You really shouldn't be dating.
Absolutely. Make it important. That's the thing that I feel like you can come across, especially when you deal with these great women and these great men, that their lifestyle doesn't open up the door. And so they've paid you the money, they've wired you the money, and then you're calling them, you're reaching out to them, and they're like, well, I have a flight this weekend, or I have this meeting. And it's like, no. You got to make it just as important. Right.
You do. And I have to get on them sometimes, because like I said, a lot of the people around them are not telling them they're not giving the straight scoop, and so I have to. I'm like, I've had to put his feet to the fire a few times.
For sure, for sure. Which needs to happen. What is the projection? What's your average of length from the time someone signs a contract, pays you the money to maybe their first date? What's the projected time frame? Is it a couple months?
No, to their first date, I usually try not to even take on a client if I don't think that I have women for him out of the gate. So there is quite a bit of an onboarding process before I even agree to work with him. So there's back and forth happening. And so therefore, when I do agree to work with him, one, I have to authentically feel like I can get him what he wants. And two, I like to have at least 2 or 3 ladies that I'm certain he could go out with out of the gate, because these women, the feedback they give me about him, people reveal things that are on their dates that they don't reveal to me, and a lot of times there's no huge surprises, but people do things on dates that they don't. Well, once they started maybe drinking or they've just let down their hair and they're talking more. And so things start to come up. So as I set people up on dates, the feedback that I get helps refine the matching moving forward, So usually it's about, I would say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most should be like the length of an onboarding process before you set somebody up on their first date.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Have you ever got any like weird feedback? Like he was, 50 shades of gray and he showed me his, panic room and his dark room. Like, have you ever got any crazy thing like that?
No, not really like that. But I did have a client many years ago. And I did have the ladies reporting to me that he was trying to get them to go back to his house. Like a lot of these guys, they have beautiful homes and they are proud of them and they do want to show them off. But he, and this is where I have to be very careful, and I take it very seriously because, I think potentially women can have a false sense of trust in these guys because I'm vouching for the guys. That's why I take all this seriously, right? So he was he got a couple ladies to go back to his house, and then he was harmless enough, but he would certainly try to put the moves on them, you know what I mean? And it would make them feel uncomfortable to where they would tell me, and then I would go back and tell him, and when I didn't see him kind of changing, now this was way back before, like I would pull the plug on a client. Now I'd pull the plug on a client, but back then I was just trying to figure out how can I manage this? So then what I would do would be that I knew he was going to do this. I knew his moves. So then what I would do is talk to the women before I set them up. And I would just say, hey, just in general, when you're dating in general, I wouldn't say like, hey, this guy, but I would say, just so you know, never go back to anybody's house on a first date. If they ask you, don't let them, talk into, moving too quickly. Like I would know what his moves he was going to make. So therefore I would tell them ahead of time, not that it was specific to him, but just good advice in general to keep in mind.
Love it. Do you have any other recommendations? Like, do you recommend alcohol on a first time match or first time date? Do you recommend talking about politics or bringing up, your therapist issues? What are some other,
so actually to round that out, because for that story, because I just remembered because it's been so many years ago, he and I went back and forth so much and I kept getting on to him about it that I actually ended up, there was no like money given back or anything like that, but we did part ways and I stopped setting him up and he knew that I was hip to what he was doing. And, anyway, so we did part ways, just to be clear. And I even forgot that I did that until I kept talking it through. So yes, I parted ways with him anyway. Okay. Now on with your next question. I think that in my world, I'm setting people up if they have a very strong political belief with each other. I'm not going to set somebody up who's like, they have, a hardcore belief of something and then somebody's radically different. I'm never setting those two people up. So I don't have issues certainly about people talking about things like that. That's important to them. Or if somebody's particularly religious, they should be going out with somebody of that nature as well. But I do think you definitely don't want to talk about like your ex, the drama. I had this one girl gave me feedback about a client once and she was like, Gina, he just kept talking about like his ex. And, she said, and the past. So a lot of people get hung up on what happened to them in the past, good or bad. But she's like, I want to talk about now and what he's interested in doing in the future. And so I really think people should, and a lot of times alcohol does affect what you do and say. So, and I've, Yeah, listen, and I do drink. I have wine or I'll have beer, a sake occasionally with my sushi. But I think nothing's good ever come from drinking. Nothing good ever comes from drinking, ever, ever. End of story. So I think the more sober you can be, the more clear-minded you're going to be, the more you're going to be able to really effectively evaluate this person in front of you, and you're going to be your best. Because I've known a few on both sides, of men and the women, where the date went horribly wrong when they had a few too many. It's not good. Really, really not good. So,
fellas, don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Do it. Be a gentleman. Be a
Yes,
gentleman.
be a gentleman. And I think,
Always.
sometimes, men want to, get the lady a little, liquored up and loose because they, might want to kiss her, or who knows. But that's ultimately going to bite them as well, because, as soon as a man sleeps with a woman and it's too soon, men sleep with women for very different reasons than women sleep with men. Men sleep with women for fun, and women sleep with men as an investment, what they see as an investment into a relationship. So even if a guy has said, yeah, I'm not really looking for anything, and he rushes that part of it, he's more likely to turn on that crazy, you know what I mean? Because she's going to be very, very upset that she, went there and it wasn't clearly the investment into a relationship that she was hoping it was. So you got to tread lightly with all that stuff.
Absolutely. I get the impression that you do not do hookups. I've heard that celebrities, they want that eye candy because they have an event, they have a gala, they have, box seats at the Super Bowl. So I get the impression you do not do hookups, right? Your ideal client is not a hookup client. Like, hey, I just need a girl for next week.
No. Because here's the thing, the reason the women trust me is because, like, especially if she's an exceptionally beautiful woman, she meets guys that want to play around all the time. Like, that's no big deal. She meets guys who have private planes. That's no big deal to a lot of these women. But if I can tell her my guy's looking for an authentic, substantial relationship, that's what she wants to hear. And that's why they trust me. And so, the women that I know, it would cheapen my business. It would cheapen everything I'm doing. So no, I don't do that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you what's the current if you have this issue at all, do you have more men than women? Do you have more women than men? What's the current thing you have going on?
I have women coming out of my ears, like a tsunami of women, mind-blowingly gorgeous women that I can't even set up because I only work. So as a matchmaker, I only work with 7 to 8 men ever at one time. Like, my company is really small and boutique. Yes, that's because I need to know my guys. I'm not looking to be like this volume business. So because of social media, the women are all over the world, and they're all ages, and they're like phenomenal. And here I am. I only work with 7 to 8 guys. I mean, but as a business, it works for me because I know my guys really well, and they get my time and attention, and that's what they're paying for. Really white glove personal service.
Fellas, you got to come correct. So right there, fellas, you're on the clock, right? You're on the clock. She has a limited clientele that she works with. She has a pool of women, of great women, candidates to connect from. So, Gina, can you reiterate what is the best client? So these men don't come on here and they're like wasting your time. What's an ideal guy that fits the mold? Be ready to go and look for love, not no flings. I think
honestly, age range, it could be like my youngest client that I've ever had was 25, and my oldest was 89, and he was sharp as a tack. Something else, that's a whole nother story for another show. But anyway, but I would say it definitely has to be a man that's looking for an authentic relationship. It has to be a man who's open. He's not too stuck in his ways. But although I'm in the picky business, so don't get me wrong, I am definitely in the picky business, so that's never going to change. But somebody who really, I think, is really in an authentic place to be looking for a true partner, and has the time and ability to make time for dating, and also know that, like with me, it's bespoke matchmaking. This isn't like some fast-paced dating service. It's not that. I try to really get as close to the bullseye as possible. I mean, and I've charged a lot of money. I've done deals, big, huge, $100,000 deals for matchmaking. But these days I've actually changed. I've gone backwards. Why? Because sometimes I don't want to take on those $100,000 guys because then I decide I don't like those guys. So my base fee, though, and that's for a limited introduction, starts at $25K. So, somebody has to be able to afford that and not sweat it. And then what happens usually with most of my clients is and they have a certain number of introductions, and then either we get past those and they just buy more because they like what we're doing and they just know they just haven't found that person, or I usually get them into a relationship. So one of those two things usually happen if they're authentically ready.
Love it. Love it. In this crazy world, we're in 2024, so everything is up in the air. Now you got pansexual, asexuals, polyamory. Have you come across any clients that their culture, their religious beliefs is I need more than one wife, and so they come to you?
I have never. I mean, I think I might have had some Saudis reach out to me way back in the day, but I was too scared to work with them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about all that stuff. But I have had clients like in Paris and Dubai and London and all over the world. But yeah, no, not anything like. I had this one man who was in India. I mean, it was going to be a challenge. And thank God he didn't become a client. He seemed lovely enough, lovely man. He seemed sincere in what he wanted, but he wanted an American woman who wanted to move to India, but he also wanted her to be more than plus size, like humongous. Yeah, more than that. Because I would show him pictures. I was like, well, what about this lady? What about this? And he was like, no, not. It was very. I was like, oh, I really just don't know that and she has to be American, and I've got to talk her into moving it. I was not comfortable with that. Thank God it didn't happen. Thank God. He seemed like a nice man, but I don't know. It was just strange.
That is strange. That is very strange. I want a plump, juicy woman. Like, sir, this is not a steak. This is not
right. I mean, and not even like a range of it. Not even a range. Because, I have guys that like women who are curvier or whatever, but he liked women, and he wasn't big. He wasn't a big man himself.
Interesting. Interesting. This has been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Ms. Hendrix, how can my audience connect with you? How can we learn more? What's next for you coming down the road? Can you share?
I have a major dating app that's talking to me about maybe bringing me on board to consult with them about new things they want to interact. So that's exciting. I have a couple of TV shows that I'm in the process of talking to about being, their matchmaker for the shows. And I have 2 more books that I have that I need to get out into the world. And so I'm always up to something. Of course, then the matchmaking and then the coaching for women. So all of it, all the time.
Absolutely.
So they can find me on any of my social medias, Matchmaker Gina Hendrix, Instagram or TikTok, or my website, ginahendrix.com. Look at that. Look at you. You bring your A game. I have to say, I've been on a lot of podcasts, okay? But you, A game all the way. I love it.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Gina, you've shared so many nuggets this episode. You've shared some incredible nuggets, some insight, some wisdom. This is why I love this show. What would you say right now to that young boy watching this? If he's back against the wall, he doesn't know if he should pull the trigger and reach out to you because he's questioning his worth, his value. He doesn't know if he can he's had struggles in the past with matchmaking before. He's tried a previous matchmaking service. And he doesn't know. What would you say to him right now?
I would say whether you reach out to me or you reach out to other matchmakers, just make sure that you're asking the right questions, You want to know how they source their ladies, how they vet their ladies, and are they willing to really vet you, because I think if anybody will just take your money, I would question that, I would question that, because you want somebody who cares deeply and really feels like they can get you what you want. So, and then show up, in being authentic, being as truthful with this matchmaker, or especially if it's me, you better be truthful, because I got to make some decisions on whether or not I'm going to, I only want to work with people that I really, truly feel like I can help.
Love it. Love it. Did you hear that, y'all? The heart. I love this. Ms. Gina, I want to say this to you publicly. Thank you for what you do. It is necessary. You are breaking down those barriers and you're connecting and creating that new bridge for us to get back together instead of apart. So thank you for what you do. Never give up.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for making time for us.
Okay.
And thank you all, my audience, for tuning into the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I hope this message was helpful. I hope this was inspiring. I hope this was encouraging you to get off the fence. Fellas, she has a pool of women that are ready for love.
Yes, they are.
So be ready and go for it. Like I end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible, super fragilistic, Miss Gina Hendrix, Matchmaking Services. Love you guys. Bye.